Well, hello out there in the world. This is Dr. Ferris again with another episode of the Professional Mindset Series. I want to thank you all for tuning in to watch these episodes with us. Obviously, I get to share a lot of great information and a lot of great mindset tools with everyone. And today I have the pleasure of having Mr. Dennis Trinkle with me. Dennis, I want to thank you for being on the show. What I'd love if you could do for us is share a little bit about yourself for the wonderful people that are out there watching.
Sure, Terry. Great to be with you this afternoon.
Yes.
And I'll also kind of start and walk backwards. So I currently serve as the director of the Center for Information and Communication Sciences and the Applied Research Institute at Ball State University, which is a really long way of saying that I'm responsible for the graduate and undergraduate technology programs. I have a kind of a long career in both technology and in higher education. Was an entrepreneur at an early age and have started and run a number of software companies, marketing and e-commerce companies over the years, and also had a foot in higher education for a lot of those years, most often simultaneously. So have done a lot of things at the intersection of entrepreneurship, technology, innovation, and education, passionate about all of those things, and really excited to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction of yourself. I do so much appreciate it. We obviously have known a lot of the same individuals over the years and worked in a lot of the same realm. And I would say that, with the topic we're talking about, the professional mindset, obviously with you in dual and multi-purpose roles, we'll say, the mindset has had to play such a major part in your successes. I always love to ask the individuals on the series. The first is, when you hear professional mindset, what's your definition of that?
Sure. Yeah. So you know what? I think mindset really is absolutely key. And I think anytime I hear that, the first thing that I hear is the reminder that so much of success really is about your mindset. It is very often less about your talents, less about physical attributes, stamina, and those sort of things. And really, more often than not, comes down to, in a particular situation and situations over time, what is your mindset? How do you act? How do you respond? Where do you go from there? So when I hear professional mindset, where that takes me is, what are your habits of mind? What are the disciplines that you can apply to be
Hmm.
professionally successful? What do you do on a daily basis and try to be consistent in, that's going to help you have the professional success that you aspire to?
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with the colleagues, and I couldn't obviously agree with you more. And again, one of the things that I've often found is people have this belief that if you don't have the right mindset from the beginning when we're younger, that you're never going to have it. But I would disagree there. I think that we can easily develop it with the right tools, the right people. um, but I do want to go back and ask you how the professional mindset has played a part in your career. You shared a lot of great examples of kind of doing the dual workforce thing and being involved with a lot of things, which could really, I think, get in the way with mindset sometimes. But I'd love to see or learn more about how your mindset played a part.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? I think that now the vocabulary that's often applied to the things that were critical for me is emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
And a lot of the concepts aren't new. They've been recognized and important for a long time. I think the vocabulary of thinking about things as emotional intelligence and all the different components of emotional intelligence is more the last 20 years and out of the work of Daniel Goleman and kind of other scholars. But for me, it really started there. I think about the foundation of emotional intelligence is being intentional about living your life and about interacting with others, and about not just being carried away by emotions, not letting situations be bigger than you, but having the presence of mind in any situation to get a pause, to think about how you're feeling in that situation, what you want your response to be, And then if it involves others, where they are, with how they're responding, what their needs and so forth are, and to take that time to think through what you want the interaction to be, where they're going to be coming from, where you're coming from, and kind of mapping that out, right? And when I was a kid, I had a lot of mentors who always said, don't just react. Take time to think. Whoever can stay calm under pressure, and whoever is, mindful and able to be intentional in a situation, is going to be the most successful. And now we call that emotional intelligence. Back then, we often just called it being prepared, having good self-discipline, strong habits of mind, strong mindsets. But I think for me, that has been foundational. I think that above all else, I developed, with good coaches and mentors in an early age, a capacity to get that pause, to think with intentionality, to develop the tools, to understand where others were coming from, to be able to relate to them, develop empathy. A lot of folks say that empathy is a born trait, and certainly I think people are born with high empathy, but anybody can develop empathy. So cultivating that empathetic nature, and then having intentionality, right? Having not necessarily a long-term plan. I used to be a big fan of long-term plans. Early in my career, I had 10-year plans that I was always working to. I think that now I've compressed that down, and I would say you should have like a 1-year plan and direction arrows. Where do you want to go? And then be prepared to embrace life as it comes at you. But I think, kind of back to it all, I would say my whole career has been about that, about empathy, relationships, meaningfully understanding where I was, being able to manage emotions, to react well under pressure, having those plans and being able to move towards them, and kind of constantly in learning and growing out of those situations. And I'll mention one other thing, which is that another key component of emotional intelligence that folks don't necessarily think about emotional intelligence as a part of emotional intelligence, but it absolutely is. It gets a lot of play these days separately, is resilience, the capacity to step up. And I think another thing about emotional intelligence is, right, everybody's going to experience failure. And if you recast it not as the opposite of success, but as a critical part of succeeding, and develop the recognition that you are going to fail every day, right? Nobody learns to ride a bike and nails it the first time. Everybody falls down, bruises their knees, breaks an arm, whatever. You've got to work at it over time. And each of those failures, each of those steps is a step towards success. And you develop the habit of being resilient, of knowing that it's okay to fall down, it's okay to fail, and you're going to get back up. So I think that that mindset has also been a really critical part of my success. No entrepreneur doesn't fail. No entrepreneur doesn't have obstacles and challenges and failures along the way. You just have to have the mindset that that's part of the growth and success process, and you're going to step up and have learned from it and move forward.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, which again, I know when I speak with the CEO, we're always having that conversation about, well, we want to do this so we could tell our 25-year-old self this stuff, right? Because again, it's funny you use the riding the bike as an analogy, and I love what you're saying there, because for some reason we can be resilient. We get up, we learn to ride that bike. But then when it comes to things as we start to get older, we start to, like you say, we start to look at it so differently, right? Because even in school, I find it with kids these days, it's almost like we're taught that you're not allowed to make mistakes in school. And realistically, that is the time, right, when we should be saying it's the hypothetical time frame. It's okay to make that mistake and learn from it. But unfortunately, I feel like that. And then, of course, you get to college and it's like, uh-oh, I failed this. So now I'm not going to be anything. We don't have that resilience. And I think that is such a great example that you shared. And I think that we need people these days to see that it is okay to do so. So thank you so much for sharing that example. I really appreciate that. Um, you kind of spoke about this, and I know sometimes people think this question's a little redundant, but I kind of like to look at it from a different approach. But why do you think the professional mindset is important for people to use in their everyday life?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to go back to you mentioned you latched on to the riding the bike. I think that human beings seem to naturally compartmentalize, right? And we
Mhm.
fail to realize that the things that allow us to be successful in one domain actually are pretty consistent across all domains, right? So we
Yes.
can look at riding a bike, developing
Mhm.
that kind of skill and understand it and embrace it, but not project it into our work life. Or we can be really active in sports and
Mhm.
say, I need to do all of these things to be successful in my sport, and not realize that it actually applies in your professional life, right? The same thing, the same kind of habits and disciplines, et cetera, that allow you to be successful as an athlete are absolutely the same skills that allow you to be successful professionally, right? You have to fail as an athlete, going back to that. All of the things
Yeah.
have these direct parallels. And the same is true for our personal lives. So I think we just tend to put our lives into buckets and think, all right, we've got our activities, we've got athletic performance, we've got our family and personal life, we've got our career, and they're all very different arenas. And in some ways they are, but fundamentally, the things that allow you to be successful in one of them allow you to be successful in all of them.
Yeah. No, great, all great points. And I think that, as you've stated, being an entrepreneur, resilience and your intelligence has to be spot on, and it has to be something that you can be comfortable with. And I'll tell you, for me, I'll use myself as an example. Working with American Heritage College and where we are as kind of a rebrand and startup, to be honest, if I'd have looked at myself 25 years old, I'd have been probably just running away. But maybe some of that comes with experience and age, but it is very important to understand that you have to be resilient. You have to pick yourself back up when not everything goes your way, right? I think I've shared it on the show before. I didn't realize until about 2 months ago that you look at Henry Ford as an example, right? I didn't realize he was 38 before he really made it successfully with the Ford Motor Company. And if you think about it, some people would look at us and say, "Man, he was old." At least my 14-year-old would say, "That's old, Dad." But it is a concept where we always feel like people have to be established and develop at such a young age. But it goes back to what we've been talking about, that the mindset can continue to grow over time. People can change over time, and studies show it, which is a great thing.
Absolutely. I'll mention an interesting thing on that note, just a
Yeah.
real quick aside for you. So just published a book on entrepreneurship. Not only have been an entrepreneur, but have studied entrepreneurship. And most people think of starting companies, exactly as you said, as a sport for the young, right? So
Yeah.
typical image is like a 20 something Silicon Valley executive taking risks and starting a company. The reality in the United States today is that the majority of entrepreneurs are in their 50s and 60s, right? So it isn't the young that start the
Yeah.
majority of businesses. It's actually folks who have learned a lot of wisdom, seen an opportunity, and developed the skill set to be able to go after it. That's actually the majority of entrepreneurs. Yep. So you are
Interesting.
exactly right.
That is very interesting. Thank you for sharing that tidbit. So see, all of us that are old like me have a chance, right? We still have that chance when we get
That's
there.
right. You're still
That's
young.
right. What's that?
You're still young. You've got decades
Oh,
ahead.
well, I don't know. If you look at the gray hair there, I couldn't tell you, but maybe that's just from the teenagers. I don't know. You never know. Well, that's excellent. So if from we'll shift a little bit from your book that you were just talking about, what's one piece of advice that you could give to the individuals out there that want to be entrepreneurs? Is there anything you could share?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I certainly would recommend the book. The one thing I would say is you can learn a lot from other folks' failures. Folks will
Mhm.
often ask me, "What's the key to entrepreneurial success?" And I say, I can't really give you one key
Yeah.
because everybody's path to success is a little bit different. But the things that blow people up actually are pretty consistent. It's like the same 20 things that blow up most entrepreneurs. And ironically, one of the things that most blows up entrepreneurs is they just don't do their homework.
Hmm.
You've mentioned to like the importance of preparedness and so forth. And entrepreneurs often don't do that. They're laser focused on their product or their service, big idea that they have. But then when it comes to all of the other things that are going to lead to success, they don't put the time, they just don't put the time and the energy in that they need to be successful. So they don't go out and really do market research, right? They think they're the only ones who've thought about the idea, and that's never the case. There are
Yeah.
probably always 1,000 other people out there doing the same thing. So what's going to make you unique? What's the nature of that market? How can you be successful in it? You've got to put in the time to be successful there. I mean, other things like having a business model that's going to work. How are you going to market and sell it, et cetera?
Yeah.
Is that actually going to make you profitable? Lots of entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm just going to go. I'm going to price it. The market will find me. It's always much more complicated than that. And people, I'm exaggerating a little bit. People will check off 75% of the things that they need to do, maybe, but then they just have these critical lapses where they don't put any time in at all
Yeah.
into planning or marketing or building the team or some critical thing that will absolutely blow you up, and it does.
Wow. That's interesting. You know what you made me just think of with the not doing the homework or influencers. Nowadays, everybody wants to be an influencer, right? And it's what sets you apart, and it's how do you do it, right? So, wow. I try to tell my daughter that because again, she's part of that age group where they think, oh, that person did it, so I can be it, right?
Yeah.
What would you say probably again, I have an estimate in my mind of, and that's not the right word, but it came to my head of what is it that really can make a person when it comes to being an entrepreneur? To me, it's they got to have passion for their product, right? What do you find is the number one thing? Is it the passion?
Boy, I think lots of everybody who goes out and has an entrepreneurial idea has the passion on
Yeah.
some level. So I think it really is less about the passion and more about the discipline and the resilience.
Okay.
Because the discipline, there are lots of little things that you've got to do every day to
Yeah.
be successful. And I think a lot of people don't actually think through honestly with themselves or go out and do the homework, talk to people who've done it, et cetera, find out what it's really going to be like, and then have a conversation. Am I willing to put in the time? Am I going to commit to this? Because it's going to be hard. It's going to
Yeah.
be demanding. It's going to jeopardize my relationships. It's going to do a lot of things. Am I willing to step up and sacrifice in those ways? And if I am, then great.
Yeah.
That gets you halfway. And then the other side is you're going to fail. No matter what you're doing, you're going to get more no's than yeses. You're going to have failures every single day in the beginning.
Mhm.
And it's not enough to say you've got to keep focused on the positive. You've just got to have the discipline to get up. And even when you're not feeling that great, you've got to say, you know what, this sucks, but tomorrow I'm going to keep walking and we're going to get there. So
That's
I
right.
think those two things, discipline and resilience, really do make the difference.
That's wonderful. And if you wouldn't mind, what was the name of your book again? If you wouldn't mind sharing?
Sure. Recipes for Success, How to Start a Business.
There you go. Right. And where can people find that?
So you can get it online through Perceivant. The publisher is Perceivant.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody. So you now have to go out there and find this book and read it, especially those that tune in that are entrepreneurs. And as you guys know, if you like this content, we want you to like, subscribe, and share, right, with everybody, because we are sharing a lot of great knowledge and wisdom from individuals like Dennis here. And this is, again, this is about you and your mindset and understanding that you're not alone. The professional mindset is something we all have to work on. And it's not an elixir, it's not a one-time remedy. So, with that being said, Dennis, thank you for being on the show with me. I
Oh, my
appreciate
pleasure.
having you. You've shared a lot of great information, and I am sure you are going to have some people going out there and buying the book. So thank you again for everything.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Terry. It's been nice talking with you this afternoon.
Absolutely.